All right, guys, welcome to the Lifetime Transformations Joe Fournier case study. And the reason why I picked Joe Fournier, especially to do this case study, is I really think it shows the work that we do. Joe Fournier's situation is very different. So I'm going to walk you through each one of the 5 steps. Step 1 is assessment. So this is where we're going to ask Joe where his goals are. Like, where does he want to go with this? Like, what are your goals here? Like, where do you want this to end? Do you want to lose fat? Do you want to gain muscles? Is it about performance? Is it a mixture of the two? And we're gonna do the basics. We're gonna find what your BMR is, what your activity levels, what your lifestyle levels are. But we're also gonna really get into the nitty gritty. Like, I'm gonna figure out about your lifestyle, what works for you, what times you wake up, what times you go to sleep, how hard it is for you to sleep, because everything matters. And as we go through, first things first, I want to tell Joe, I was like, look, where's your goal? Where's your North Star? Because if we take a boat and we shift it a little bit off course, we end up in a completely different destination. So I want to make sure that, he knows what he wants. He wanted to gain lean muscle mass. He wanted to improve his explosiveness. He really wanted to have a rebody composition, which he just wanted to have less body fat, more muscle mass, so he could lower his weight because he had to make weight for his fights. He's done a bunch of workout programs and diets in the past. Some have worked, but in the short term, but it kind of created this yo-yo dieting. The struggle with consistency was definitely there, and some misunderstandings of some nutritional truths. So we obviously did the basics. We had to figure out what his base metabolic rate was, what his caloric needs were, and after going through that whole step of assessing him, what's the next thing? And normally people are like, oh, you just start putting in the program. And no, that's not how we do it. I really like this method. I call it the HBBI method, the hit by a bus insurance. So I want to have it that even if I were to get hit by a bus, boom, over the next few weeks, you'll actually still be able to learn enough that you could take what I've taught you and be able to keep putting into practice. You could still hit your goals. So Joe's, he's been yo-yo dieting due to his super stressful lifestyle and work. I was really explaining to him how crash diets really affect him, how they'll affect his hunger hormones, how it's harder to come back. And the more you crash diet, the more those hunger hormones grow. When you get back off of the diet, it's so much easier to blow up. I was trying to explain to him how leveraging cardio for fat loss wasn't the best idea, because as you burning all those cardio, your hunger hormones again go up. Generally, it's really hard to burn off enough calories just from cardio. And we also taught him the basics, like his micronutrients, what is protein, how much protein he should be getting, how important protein is towards his goals, carbohydrates, the role of them, that they're not some evil micronutrient that's there to make you fat, that they're just another micronutrient that can be used for you to get more explosive and stronger. And there's actually a very important one, the fats, and how important it is to have healthy fats for your hormone levels. And also your micronutrients. We want to know his vitamins, his minerals, what kind of balances he's on, if he needs to take any supplementation that will help him with his performance. Even some simple stuff like creatine and whey protein powder, if it's worth it for him, should he be using it? And then Joe, he was part of the elite package that we have, the elite performance package. So he got his blood work done. We had a doctor check over it. We saw where his testosterone levels at. We saw where his cholesterol's at, all his blood work. We wanted to make sure that he was healthy, that everything was in place, that his hormones were balanced, and that everything was set from an internal perspective on a deeper level to truly have an understanding where he is, because such a high athlete and such a high performing person, that it was extra important. And we had to deal with a lot of the lifestyle things like yo-yo dieting, the stress and busy life, because Joe works, he has a massive hospitality industry business and a professional athlete. So you can only imagine what he has to go through on a daily basis. And yeah, just that, and how that creates crash dieting, how that creates overeating. So we really had to make sure that where his purpose was for, making sure that, hey, we want you to do cardio for your health and for your performance as an athlete, but we need everything to be strategized around very specific needs, because you have such an intense lifestyle. So that's when we move into the strategies, because what he was doing before, it was not sustainable. Even trying to willpower through not eating all night and just being up till 7 a.m, trying to get to sleep, wake up, barely enough sleep, training super duper hard, we would just have this consistent difficulty getting on the schedule. So we had to really plan his meals out. I'm talking about exact timeline, things on a strict timeline, so you know what's actually achievable. And what I mean by that is like time management. What's your work schedule? How can we put a workout that's actually effective for you, that you're getting enough sleep? How can we time it that it alleviates your stress? I don't want you to feel like, oh man, I can't get my run in, so I'm taking an hour. I only got 20 minutes to get ready for work. We had to really manage his time, to manage his stress, because the more cortisol rises, the more difficult it is to lose weight, the easier it is for you to start coming off your diet, the easier it is for you to make those breaks, and especially with someone as busy and high functioning as Joe. So our goal setting was very specific. We had milestones. We knew exactly where we were headed. There was no way we knew where the path was. We had a North Star. We had a timeline that was realistic. I didn't promise him that, hey, you're going to lose weight like this. I told him the timeline. I told him how we're going to get there, and I told him how we're going to get past the hurdles, all the difficulties that were going to come in, all the times like, oh yeah, you're getting no sleep the night before, and you have 5 meetings. How are you going to deal with that? You're not going to be able to get a workout in, and that would do stuff like figuring out how to carb cycle. So I wanted to give him enough carbs right before he got into a workout, especially fast digesting carbs that would let him go and explode and hit the pads hard or lift the weights hard to get as much athletic improvement as he could in those sessions, because each session mattered, because time was of the essence. And really making sure that the foods he were eating was satiating enough. They didn't ever feel like, oh man, this is too much, I'm going to break. We had focused really hard on his workout program, lots of compound movements to build real solid strength. We didn't have a lot of time, so I couldn't mess around. Everything had to be efficient. Things were hard hitting power movements. There was a lot of plyometric exercise because Joe was a fighter. He needed. So here we had to focus on his workout program. And because we know we didn't have a lot of time, we really had to be serious about it. So the strength program, what I did is I focused on like heavy barbell lifts, compound movements, because we had to build as much muscle, much strength. We didn't have time to mess around. We had to be very, very strategic with our time. So everything was really hardcore, heavy barbell lifts, plyometric exercises, and we used cardio training because he's a boxer. He had to go 10 rounds, so we had to make sure he was ready to do that. Rest and recovery obviously was top priority here. Making sure he got on some kind of sleep schedule, especially because the sleep schedule couldn't be traditional. Couldn't be like, oh, he goes to sleep at 9 and wakes up at 8 in the morning or 7 in the morning, whatever. It just had to be, it's very much like he'll go to sleep at 7 and wake up when he needs to wake up. So we had to plan the sleep schedule out, make sure that that was prioritized, because without sleep, weight loss is slower, your performance goes down, injury risk goes up, and he's also performing at his work. We did a lot of like active recovery, like exercise, like light walks on his rest days to keep those calories burning, some stretching, some movement drills, things of that nature. And then it was hunger management, because when you're on low calories and you're really busy, you're pushing your body, it's really important. So we had to make sure that we got smaller, more frequent meals, and then maybe one bigger meal when he was the most hungry. We did a lot of calorie cycling, which is like we had to educate Joe, like, okay, you're going to be on Tuesday. We got like 2 sessions and you got a big night of work. Like that was the day we're going to eat more calories. And this is why the last but not least was the hunger management. And it was so important that we got this right, because Joe's schedule was so crazy that we really couldn't plan things regularly. I couldn't tell you this week we're going to have a breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It just depended on what we were doing. So like meal frequency mattered, to get those small meals in that could feed him throughout the day to keep his energy sustained, because we didn't know when. And sometimes we would have one bigger meal at nighttime if I knew he was going to be working the whole day. He wasn't going to be doing a lot of training. And at nighttime, when he came home after a late night, he'd be really hungry. I'd make sure we had a larger meal set for them. A lot of calorie cycling. One day, a lot more calories. It could be like up by 500 calories one day and then down by, I think, 1,000 the next day, basically staying in a deficit on a week's end and putting the calories up when he needs it. Like when are you working, Joe? When are you having to put in the workouts? What's the sparring days? What do we have to do? What do we have to get the days that we need A plus Joe to come out? Those days were higher calories. The days that Joe was more chilling, we took the calories lower. And it was like a lot of like, Joe getting used to his own hunger cues, teaching him like, okay, that's enough food for right now. I'm actually feeling full. I don't need to go to the next level. And this is obviously continuous learning, ongoing education about nutrition, about fitness, about muscle gain, about fat loss. So we truly have an understanding of why we're doing what we're doing. And so, like, we started with the detailed plans that covered the first few weeks. We established routines and habits. We monitored regular check ins. We tracked the progress. We adjusted the plan, calling audibles all the time, addressing the challenges. And it's a support system. He had us constantly, every single day, me and my whole team. And by employing these strategies, we aim to give Joe his goals for his fight, his lifestyle that ensured him feel energized, satisfied, and prepared for his fight. And then is winning. And I call this winning. It's important. Not, I don't call it just the action, because this is the action part. Is to actually the doing these actions what helps you win. So I call this step winning because of that. So this is how we started. We started here at 245 pounds. He weighed 227 pounds in this time frames. The calorie intake varied quite a bit according to the schedules and goals for that week. Just like I said, we cycled the calories. And, he's a human. There was some bump offs, but we generally were as strict as we possibly could, considering how quickly we had to make this work. So it was a customized nutrition plan with calorie cycling. We made sure we got him enough protein. It was super important. We didn't want him to lose, especially losing so fast. It's so easy for your body to start eating up protein, especially when you're doing high intensity sports. So what did I do? I said, okay, Joe, we're going to make sure your protein was higher. Probably was like 1.2 grams per pound of body weight. And that's probably a little more than what is recommended. But because for satiation reasons and for the fact that I knew we were going to be pushing Joe so hard, I wanted to be super important. We know he had a balanced macronutrients all around, though. He definitely had his fats, he had his carbs. The program, the intensity was modulated throughout it. So some days were super hardcore, really like killer sessions. Other days were a bit more chilled. We backed off. And that was to prevent him to getting injured and help him get through this camp and get into the next stage. A lot of plyometrics. We need Joe to be explosive and a lot of strength training. While we were trying to cut down, I really wanted him to maintain that mass. I wanted Joe to be the strong fighter that he is with a big power. So we really had to keep it on the weights. And it was hard because you're already feeling a bit depleted, and getting those extra weight in, you feel like maybe doing another boxing workout. But I told him how important it would be for him to keep that in as a small part. It wasn't taking a lot of hours. It was just important. And active recovery. That was huge. And just being able to recover from these hard workouts was super important. The next point here was Joe's results and continuing the momentum in 90 days. The education, we really dug into the deep understandings of his nutrition and planning. He knew why for everything we did. And on top of that, we kept him accountable. And that's like the most important part of what we do, because anyone can get this information. Sure, we're experts at this. Sure, we know all the little minutia details that really help. But I think what separates us as coaches are our level of accountability that we put on our clients. And with Joe, he had that with us every single day. We also empowered him with the tools and knowledge he needed to keep pushing forward. It was a clear step-by-step plan. As we're going through the plan, he had the support system. So whenever he wavered, there was nowhere to go. We had the support from the back and the front. There was nowhere, and there was nowhere for him to falter either way because the support system was there behind him. And we're constantly practicing his targets. Like, I knew where his weight was at all times. I knew where his metrics were, like where his hunger level was, his sleep was, energy levels throughout the day, strength gains. I knew where he was when he was having a strong workout, when he was in a weak workout, when he started lacking sleep, because all these things matter. Having these things in a row is what helped me as a coach deliver the results. Because when Joe was like, oh, I feel fine, but I know he's lifting less weight than he was last week, and he's a little more fatigued during his thing, I knew that, oh man, we're cutting back a little too hard. We need to make some modulations. And this is how we achieved greatness with him. It was a holistic approach. We really took into his lifestyle for his stress management, his meal planning, just a well-rounded approach to this. Because if you just attack the food and the diet and the exercise and you forget about the lifestyle, well, the lifestyle is what comes in and stops you from doing it. Everyone has a good intention of going in and putting all the processes into play, but it's the lifestyle that gets in the way, and needing to change that is important. And we customize it for Joe. That's one thing we do at Lifetime Transformations is it's completely tailored to you and what you need to be able to succeed. So anywhere from like your lifestyle, your business demands, what your sport demands, if you're an athlete, or even if you're just a hobbyist athlete, like we force that this is for you. The point of this is for your life to improve. It's not to show our system, it's for your life to improve. And we have the system to do that. And there's just consistent review and adaptations as it goes through. And now it's time for overachieve. At this point, Joe finished his 3 months. He was in great shape. He looked great, but he wanted to go further. He knew he had a fight coming out. His fight got canceled. He could move it a little bit later. He wanted me to go deeper with him. And this is when it got exciting. So we got done with a 90-day program. He lost 35 pounds. He was in amazing shape, as you see in the picture over here. He stayed at, he wanted to stay on. He wanted to take himself to the next level. And he had the tools. He wanted to be elite. I mean, that's what he is. I mean, everything in his life, he's elite, and there's a reason for that. And he was willing to stay on and invest in himself to do that. So we took time to build on more muscle mass, more power, more speed, and more focus generally across the board. Like we got an opportunity to also increase his fats and carbs a little bit more, so his calories were a bit higher. In general, his performance was able to get up a little bit because of that. So after the 90 days, 35 pounds down, great physical condition. He was empowered. He had all the tools to maintain and for his new health and physique. But then we started aiming higher. Joe aspired to be beyond great shape and being that elite level athlete. So he put on more muscle mass, significant more. His body composition improvements grew. Like his weight was going down slightly, but he was just getting more and more brolic. Like he just looked like a monster. His power was enhanced. His strength was enhanced. He was just hitting so much harder. He was able to deliver force. And it wasn't that we trained in a specific weights that were boxing weights. We got him strong, and then he trained boxing, and that made him strong. Because that's the other thing is you get stronger, then you transfer that to your sport by training your sport. Nutrition, we increased his calories. We made sure his micronutrient amounts even a bit more well-rounded. We even pulled his protein back just a little bit because it was a little less needed. He wasn't in a big deficit anymore. Probably actually was in a maintenance at that point. And the nutrition timing, we optimized it to make sure that every single one of his workouts he was able to give 100%. And it was still a lot of strength training, but a lot of power development too. We started adding a little more power exercise, more plyometrics, maybe some more weighted plyometrics as well. And we added some new varying workouts, like we added some Metacon workouts to kind of like get him through in those high conditioning phases, especially when his muscles especially when he was getting closer to the fight and he wanted to get more like of that feeling of being tired and have that muscle endurance. And, just regular assessments constantly, every single time we're pushing Joe, trying to get him, making sure that his strength is better, his performance, his blood works better, everything through, and skill development. Trying to make sure Joe's techniques and efficiency, not only in the exercise, but in the boxing is top level. And again, we got his rest, recovery, lifestyle, everything like that was already dialed in, and we moved to the next level. At this point, Joe knew what he had to do, and we could implement more because he had that base layer of knowledge.